bring the kids to my house Saturday night. We'll make the announcement official.
In 1974, a small-budget film quietly challenged the way America saw black motherhood, love, and survival. Claudine wasn't flashy, and it didn't top the box office, but it told a story few dared to touch. Led by Diahann Carroll and James Earl Jones, it was more than a romance. One uncensored scene nearly shut it down. From public housing to private passion, this was a film Hollywood wasn't ready for. Here are the moments, the tensions, and the scene that nearly got Claudine banned. A film rooted in Harlem's reality. In the early 1970s, America's movie theaters were filled with blaxploitation swagger, white-centered dramas, and feel-good escapism. But one film broke ranks. Claudine arrived quietly in 1974, without explosions or car chases. Its biggest weapon? Truth. This was not a fantasy. It was Harlem. Claudine Price, a single mother of 6, wasn't wielding a weapon or selling a dream. She was washing dishes, dodging social workers, and fighting to love without penalty. Oddly enough, Claudine didn't begin in Harlem. It began in the minds of Tina and Lester Pine, a white screenwriting couple inspired by the black women they'd known as domestic workers, women who raised children for other families while fighting to keep their own together. They pitched the script to Third World Cinema, a production company founded by Ossie Davis to promote black filmmakers and challenge Hollywood's status quo. Third World Cinema became a quiet revolution. With films like Claudine, it proved black stories didn't need to be filtered through white pain or violence to resonate. Originally, the role of Claudine was written for acclaimed actress Diana Sands. Tragically, Sands was diagnosed with cancer before production. In a powerful act of sisterhood, she insisted the role go to her friend, Diahann Carroll. Carroll, known for her groundbreaking work in Julia, took the part and transformed it. She later explained she had known that woman all her life. They were both born from the same Harlem streets. She didn't just play Claudine, she lived her. James Earl Jones was cast as Rupert "Roop" Marshall, a gentle garbage collector with calloused hands and unspoken hurt. This was years before he voiced Darth Vader or Mufasa. But even then, he carried quiet strength and emotional depth. Directing them was John Barry, once blacklisted during the McCarthy era. Claudine marked his return to American film, and he made it count. Instead of sets, Barry chose Harlem's Sugar Hill and Edgecombe Avenue for filming. Real streets, real apartments, real families looking out their windows, watching a film about people who finally looked like them. The crew had just $1.1 million, so they embraced the city's chaos. Crowded bathrooms, clattering pots, kids yelling across fire escapes. These weren't Hollywood extras. They were Harlem neighbors. In one scene, Claudine's kids argue over who gets to shower first. The hallway is tight, the walls are peeling, but it's honest, and that made it revolutionary. At its core, Claudine is about survival in a system that punishes love. Claudine hides new appliances from the social worker. Even a toaster or iron could trigger an audit. Welfare rules back then dictated that if a man stayed over or contributed financially, benefits could be slashed. Roop wants to help, but help has consequences. Love, for Claudine, is a risk, a luxury, and yet she still chooses it. That tension between need and dignity runs through every scene. What makes Claudine and Roop's love story so radical isn't the kiss, it's the context. This was a black woman on public assistance, loving a working-class black man, both trying to be vulnerable without sacrificing survival. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, playing Claudine's eldest son Charles, added another layer. His character questions whether welfare dependency strips men of their role, challenging both Roop and his mother. Can a man stay if the system won't let him contribute? These aren't just family arguments. They're the emotional echoes of policy. Despite its indie roots, Claudine grossed $6 million, an enormous return for a low-budget film. More importantly, it became a cultural touchstone. Black women saw themselves on screen, flawed, funny, fierce, not in the background, not a burden. Protagonists. Carroll later called Claudine the most important work of her career. Third World Cinema's success with Claudine proved that films rooted in truth, not tropes, could sell tickets and stir change. Crew members would go on to shape the Black independent film movement for decades. Claudine's quiet revolution in theaters. In the spring of 1974, Claudine quietly made its way into American theaters, not with billboards or million-dollar ad campaigns, but with word of mouth and a message that resonated deeply in Black communities. It was different, it was dignified, and it was disruptive, not with violence, but with vulnerability. Distributed by 20th Century Fox, but funded independently through Third World Cinema, Claudine opened in a handful of cities before gradually spreading across the country. It premiered in predominantly Black neighborhoods, places where families didn't always see their own experiences reflected on screen. There was no red carpet spectacle, but what Claudine lacked in glitz, it made up for in emotional truth. Theaters in Harlem and Chicago's South Side reported packed showings, some selling out for weeks. And unlike other urban films of the era, Claudine wasn't driven by street violence or revenge. It was driven by love and the bureaucracy that tried to suppress it. Across America, Black audiences connected deeply with Claudine Price. She was funny, complicated, and overworked, just like many women in the audience. She wasn't a flawless supermom, but a woman doing her best within an unforgiving system. Diahann Carroll brought nuance to every sigh, eye roll, and whispered joke with her kids. She captured the essence of motherhood under pressure, something rarely given serious screen time. The performance drew tears, laughter, and long conversations in beauty salons, churches, and after-school PTA meetings. If Claudine's story carried its weight, the soundtrack gave it wings. Curtis Mayfield's production paired with Gladys Knight and the Pips' vocals created a soul-infused companion to Claudine's emotional world. The music wasn't just decorative, it was narrative. On and On climbed to number 2 on the R&B charts and crossed over into Billboard's Hot 100. Mayfield's sound made the film even more relatable. Every lyric sounded like something Claudine would say if she had the time to sing. The relationship between Claudine and Roop is tender, but steeped in tension. Roop brings Claudine a toaster, trying to help, but instead of joy, it sparks fear. A new appliance might get Claudine disqualified from her benefits, a twisted irony of the welfare system. Scenes like this were quiet, but revolutionary. They exposed how love, in poor Black communities, often came with state-sponsored consequences. Claudine became more than a film. It became a cultural conversation. Universities used it in social science and African American studies programs. Professors called it a case study in intimate injustice, a term used to describe how policy affects family, love, and dignity. Diahann Carroll's performance didn't just touch audiences, it earned her a 1975 Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, making her only the second Black woman to ever receive the honor. James Earl Jones received a 1975 Golden Globe nomination for Best Actor, recognizing him as a new kind of leading man, emotionally open, Black, and working class, portraying a character whose vulnerabilities were as prominent as his strength. The scene that nearly got Claudine banned. When Claudine wrapped editing in 1973, the filmmakers thought verifying intimate realism might raise eyebrows, but not that it might threaten the film's release. What appeared on screen was far from exploitive. Claudine and Roop, alone in bed, practicing quiet affection. Touches, smiles, the soft hush of breath in the morning light. But in the hypersensitive climate of 1970s, America, this felt like radical intimacy. And for Claudine, on welfare, in Harlem, loving proudly, it became political. Executives at 20th Century Fox weren't accustomed to this kind of scene. It had no violence, no suspense, just a naked male torso leaning over a half-sleeping woman. Studios worried. Could this earn the film an R rating? Would local censors in conservative markets refuse to show it? One early insider commentary suggests the filmmakers made two versions, a full print and a second, safer version with tighter edits, especially in bed. A move that smacks of self-censorship before the censors even spoke. The conversation intensified because this was a black woman on welfare showing room for love and intimacy, not morals. That felt radical to some. Director John Barry, who had survived McCarthyist purges, refused to sanitize the scene. Distancing would mean erasing critical emotional context. Intimacy wasn't titillation, it was testament. According to the Afro voice, the camera came in tight during their touch, then zoomed out to reveal Claudine's tenderness and protectiveness, as Roop cushioned his ear against her bosom. It's visual storytelling, no dialogue needed. There's a symmetry between the toast and the embrace. One warm, domestic, and hopeful, yet both dangerously vulnerable. You can't give love without risking politics. Caught between support for Barry and fear of backlash, Fox engineers held screenings for regional managers. Reports described intonation of discomfort and suggestions that the scene be trimmed in certain areas. So the team trimmed an extra second or two. Nothing graphic, but enough to soothe censors. Ultimately, only the softest close-up was removed, leaving the emotion intact. Compare Claudine to Last Tango in Paris, 1972, which caused outrage for raw depictions of intimacy. Claudine did none of that, but the context made it feel taboo. A black couple, tender, in the middle of the night, making love, was enough to get hearts pounding, and some clerks to see red ink. A critic noted that Claudine didn't shock like European art house. It shocked because it showed Black City intimacy, something Hollywood had avoided. Once Claudine hit theaters, audiences responded not with protest, but with applause. Critics praised its restraint. The AV Club later described it as a love story that raged quietly, the strongest statement of all. For many black viewers, the scene meant something bigger, permission to hold and kiss and wake up with someone without shame. In welfare programs that promoted suspicion, this was a beautiful rebellion. Barry's victory wasn't a cinematic stunt, it was a cultural win. It told black women everywhere, your love is valid. Your body deserves tenderness. Your life matters enough to be shown clearly. Today, film scholars credit Claudine's bed scene as a breakthrough moment when black love was allowed to be seen fully, without apology or concession. When Claudine opened, the camera didn't waver. Neither did its love. That scene may have almost derailed the film, but its restoration helped redefine what black intimacy could look like on screen. From resistance to statement, Claudine breaks through. By 1975, Claudine had quietly disrupted the narrative in American film, proving that honest portrayals of black families could succeed both critically and commercially. This chapter tracks how awards, recognition, scholarly interest, and modern platforms helped preserve its impact. Diahann Carroll's powerhouse performance earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress that year, making her only the second black woman ever recognized in that category. This wasn't just ceremonial. It was a rare moment of industry recognition for a black woman playing a working-class mother with vulnerability and power. That same year, James Earl Jones received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actor, further cementing the film's resonance. Together, these nods demonstrated that small-scale stories centered on real Black lives could break into Hollywood's highest ranks. Claudine became a quiet touchstone for a generation of deeply personal Black storytellers. While it didn't fit with the flashy stylings of Blaxploitation, its emotional realism and intimate focus on working-class life carved a new space in American cinema. Scholars note that the film foregrounds emotional truths rarely represented on screen, particularly the dignity and resilience of its Black working-class characters, even as it critiques the oppressive welfare system. This grounded portrayal helped pave the way for the emotionally resonant, community-centered filmmaking that characterized the LA Rebellion era. Claudine is more than a love story. It's a document of defiance. The awards and acclaim were significant, but its deepest victory was how it changed the lens on Black working-class motherhood. It invited audiences to see resilience without bitterness, romance without fantasy, and dignity without apology. It stood for truth in an era of spectacle, and in doing so, ensured its voice would never fade. Where they are now, and why Claudine still matters. Decades after its release, Claudine continues to resonate, not due to awards or retrospectives, but because it lives in personal stories, emotional transformations, and renewed attention from modern viewers. Its relevance endures in intimate spaces, living rooms, counseling groups, and individual reflections. After Claudine, Diahann Carroll leaned into roles that demanded emotional depth. She transformed through this performance, playing a woman stripped of glamour and left with raw resilience. In later interviews, she described the challenge of playing Claudine Price, vulnerable without weakness. When Carroll died in 2019, her obituary emphasized that for many, Claudine was her most emotionally impactful work, and her portrayal still inspires Black actresses today. James Earl Jones found in Roop a rare opportunity to subvert the strong, often stoic Black male archetype. He later shared that Roop opened his own emotional response, a man unprotected, awkward in love, but honest about vulnerability. He remarked that the role taught him emotional safety and performance. Less armor, more honesty. Lawrence Hilton Jacobs, who played Charles, carried Claudine's emotional honesty into his later work. He credited the film's use of real Harlem locations and director John Barry's trust in authentic expression for shaping his acting style, calling the film rare and unselfish. But Claudine isn't just a landmark for its cast. It continues to speak deeply to new viewers. On Reddit, one fan praised it as one of the most interesting films I've seen. Across Letterboxd and YouTube, viewers use terms like underrated, intimate, and too real to describe how Claudine reminds them of personal experiences. Working moms, single-parent households, and folks navigating love under financial strain. Claudine continues to resonate today because of its emotional honesty. The film doesn't just depict poverty, it reveals the invisible emotional toll of survival. Claudine's quiet sacrifices, her constant juggling of children, work, and love, paint a vivid portrait of emotional labor that still echoes in conversations about single motherhood and burnout. Her weariness isn't dramatized for effect. It's lived in, grounded in reality. It's this nuance that has allowed Claudine to age not as a relic, but as a reflection of intergenerational caregiving and the resilience required to keep going when no one's watching. The film's quietly powerful toaster scene offers a poignant glimpse into the emotional labor behind Claudine's exhaustion. As she and her children scramble to hide the toaster with the social worker at the door, it's a visual shorthand for how even a simple household item can threaten their welfare benefits. This underscores how love and survival often collide under systemic pressure. Remarkably, Claudine doesn't offer solutions, it offers recognition. It asks us to see unsung strength in exhaustion, love clashing with policy, and tender moments slammed by injustice. That authenticity, not its historical context, is what keeps it alive. Today, Claudine matters because it refuses to pretend hardship can be pretty. It will not make anyone feel good, but it will make everyone feel seen. And in that truth, its legacy endures.